Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to News Night, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Tonight on the program, the COVID-19 pandemic, corruption, political dynasties, among others. Where do candidates stand and what are their plans? The answers and highlights from the much talked about CNN Philippines vice presidential and presidential debates. The country records fewer than 1,000 new COVID-19 cases for the first time this year, on the eve of shifting to the lowest alert level in Metro Manila and 38 other areas. And Netflix hit series Squid Game bags major trophies at this year's Screen Actors Guild Awards. Who else won? The list later on in the show. An unprecedented political showdown meant to help the voters. CNN Philippines political showdown meant to help the voters. CNN Philippines mounted back-to-back debates for candidates seeking the two highest positions in the country. On Saturday, 7 out of 9 vice presidential bets faced off at the University of Santo Tomas in Manila. Walden Bello caused a commotion in the debate, putting him to the top trending Twitter topics that day. Podiums for Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte and Deputy Speaker Lito Atienza were left empty. An almost complete attendance from presidential candidates the next day. 9 out of 10 candidates stood side by side on one stage for more than 3 hours to talk about corruption, the pandemic, the economy, and other pressing issues. The highly anticipated debate also trended online with hundreds of thousands of tweets. Well, candidates had a chance to talk about how important a debate is for someone applying for president. Our Chrissy Di Matulak has that and other debate highlights.
For the first time since the campaign period began, presidential candidates, all but one, finally came face-to-face to answer the country's most pressing issues. 9 candidates were present during Sunday's debate. But why are debates important? According to the candidates, debates serve as their job applications to the public.
Number one ingredient din ng leadership, aside from character, is you show up in the most difficult times. Pag hindi ka mag-show up in the most difficult times, hindi ka leader.
Gusto mo naman ba mag-hire ng isang empleyado na hindi mo nakausap, hindi mo nakita, hindi mo nalaman kung anong karanasan, anong magagawa para sa iyong kumpanya?
Former Senator Bongbong Marcos was unable to attend due to prior commitments. Despite this, his podium was still left on stage. On other issues, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno expounded on the unreturned 50 million pesos campaign funds for his 2016 senatorial bid. He even showed a copy of receipt from the BIR.
Hindi ako nagsoli ng binigay sa akin tulong sa kampanya na sobra, ngunit dinupad ko ang aking tungkulin bilang mamamayan na magbayad ng buwis. That's why wala akong moral ascendancy to answer the question in favor.
Most candidates favor endorsements from religious groups, but former Defense Secretary Norberto Gonzales clarified that these endorsements should come from groups only and not the whole church. Muslim candidate Faisal Mangondato is in favor of this as long as people can still freely choose their own bets. While former presidential spokesperson Ernesto Abella did not raise his hand on the issue. Candidates meantime were on the same page in fighting corruption.
On my first day in office, I will sign a waiver of my rights under the Bank Secrecy Act that will set the tone of my presidency. In the first 100 days, I will do an internal cleansing of the inept, corrupt, and undisciplined government officials and employees.
Piniprepare ko na yung plano ko sa pagpatayo ng mega prison dahil gusto ko makita sa kulungan ang mga kawatan dyan sa gobyerno.
For the presidential bets, life will go on if election results don't go their way. Senator Manny Pacquiao will push through with his retirement, while Labor leader Leody de Guzman says he will make his way back to the streets fighting for labor rights. Dr. Jose Montemayor, on the other hand, is confident he'd win the race.
Hindi ko iniisip yun. Alam mo, board top notcher ako lahat. 7,000 ang kalaban ko. No? Hindi ako nag-isip na mababa lang ako. Just passing. No? I'm a board top notcher in everything that I do.
The debate capped off with the candidates committing to fair, honest, and peaceful elections. Chrissy de Matulak, CNN Philippines.
Bongbong Marcos was the lone candidate who did not show up at the CNN Philippines presidential debate on Sunday. His spokesman Vic Rodriguez insists his absence was because of a conflict in schedule. Rodriguez says Marcos's trip to Pangasinan has been set since January 11th but was delayed amid the surge in cases. Marcos visited around 20 towns and cities in the vote-rich province over the weekend.
We have been trying to keep up with the time, but medyo nalilate kami with our commitments because as you can see, people are really going out para salubungin si presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.
Marcos's attendance in the succeeding debates is still up in the air. The frequent debate skipper said he prefers interviews where he can explain his platform better. Well, the pandemic has changed so many things in our lives, among them the strategic mindset of our next leaders to rise from this health crisis. Last night, CNN Philippines presidential debate revealed the pandemic recovery plan of 9 presidential hopefuls. Our Paolo Barcelon tells us more.
Where were you rather in the days, weeks, and months that followed after the president placed Luzon under ECQ? And
it may sound like a harmless question, but responses revealed how much 9 presidential candidates in the CNN Philippines presidential debate knew about the pandemic and how best to pull the country out of the crisis. Some candidates looked back at how these events unfolded.
Nung mga panahong yun, nasa bahay, nanonood ng telebisyon at nakita ko yung mga policy ng gobyerno na ipapatupad. Nalulungkot ako dahil ang unang-unang ginawa ng Pangulong Duterte ay parang binaliwala yung COVID.
Ako naman nagkaroon ng panahon na magnilay-nilay kung ano ang pwede natin gawin at paano makikita kung ano na ang lapit ko sa kalikasan ay medyo imagine natin yan. Kung sakali ka ako magno-normal, palagay ko agrikultura. Ang una natin itutulak kasi kailangan ng pagkain.
Kaya po, itong pandemya, kapag tayo ay hindi sumunod sa ating nagtagalikha, talagang tuloy-tuloy po itong pandemya.
For others, all current and former officials in government unloaded their plans on how Filipinos can pick themselves up from the pandemic.
Nasa Senado po ako at natatandaan ko, tinatanong namin yung mga health officials dahil merong Wuhan couple nagbiyahe galing Cebu, papunta Dumaguete, bumalik na Manila. Tinanong namin, kailan may contact tracing? Ilan na yung na-contact tracing nyo sa mga co-passengers? Ang sagot sa amin, 17%.
In Santa Ana Hospital, we created the first infectious disease control center. On the first week, about 16 bed, and in a month time, about 60 beds available. Kaya naging center of COVID patient ang Santa Ana Hospital.
We were still with DFA at ang binigyan tugon po yung yung pagre-repatriate ng ating mga OFWs na nagagaling sa Middle East and sa Europe at malaki siyang gawain dahil it took maybe something like not maybe mga 400,000 ang mga na repatriate.
Tayo po unang lumabas, hindi po tayo nagtago. Una po tayong lumabas at namigay ng face mask, face shield, at saka PPS.
A candidate even offers his life to save others.
Ang mismong buhay namin, hindi lang bilang doktor, kundi bilang isang mamamayang Pilipino, isang Pilipino na nagmamahal sa ating bayang Pilipinas. Yan po, buhay, hindi gamit.
But for the only woman who attended this debate, it was a litany of accomplishments, too long to list in 90 seconds.
Naglagay po tayo ng mga dormitories. Wala na pong trabaho yung mga toda natin. Naglagay po tayo ng community marts. Nag-launch po tayo ng Bayanihan Eskwela nung wala ng paaralan. Meron tayong mga community learning hubs. Nag-launch po tayo ng Bayanihan Hanap Buhay para dun sa mga nawalan ng trabaho. Meron po tayong Vaccine Express. Meron tayong Swab Cab. Meron po tayong Bayanihan E-Consulta.
Why are discussions about the pandemic important in debates? The answer may be debatable, but one thing is for sure. The next set of leaders we will elect should lead the country out of one of the biggest health crises the world has ever faced. Paolo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
Presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos and his running mate Sara Duterte are leading in the latest voter preference survey by the Octa Research Group. The study, which was conducted from February 12 to 17, showed 55% of voters want Marcos to become the country's next president. He has a wide lead over Vice President Leni Robredo, who is at second place with 15%. Close behind, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, 11%, Manny Pacquiao, 10%, Ping Lacson, 3%, while the other candidates got a score of 0. For Marcos's team, Octa's survey shows that his direct way of communicating with people on the ground is working. Lacson says he is unbothered by the survey and that the real test will be on election day itself. He also brought up Marcos's absence in the CNN Philippines debate.
Kung papaniwalaan natin yung resulta ng mga survey, lahat kami nakatayo doon kagabi, talo. Yung wala doon ang panalo.
Over to the vice presidential survey, Duterte got a score of 43%, while the second placer, Senate President Tito Soto, got 33%. Following behind, Kiko Pangilinan, Doc Willie Ong, Lito Atienza, and Carlos Serapio, while other candidates got a score of 0. Octa conducted the survey through the face-to-face interviews with 1,200 respondents. It has a 3% error margin. Coming up, a day before Metro Manila shifts to the lowest alert level, the health department sees a record low in new COVID-19 cases. And while peace talks are underway between Russia and Ukraine, how are efforts to bring Filipinos out of harm's way in the Eastern European country? We find out after the break.
Conquering the universe was the ultimate, but there's more. Dahil tinawag ko ako ng Panginoon for a major purpose. To guide the youth, help communities, and to bring others closer to Him. Kaya I take care of my health through proper diet, exercise, and MX3 capsule. I am ready to serve. Kasi para sa Panginoon, hindi lang ako fourth runner-up. First place ako sa puso niya.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 capsule ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamitin panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. The country logs fewer than 1,000 new cases for the first time this year. The health department reported 951 fresh cases today, the lowest since the surge began in December 2021. Total tally is at over 3.6 million, with only 52,179 active cases. 5 laboratories did not submit data. The drop in new cases comes just a day before the National Capital Region downgrades to the lowest alert level. What again can we expect under alert level 1? Here's Trisha Terrado with that report.
With the capital region's shift to alert level 1, establishments and workplaces and public transportation may now return to their full operation. All the flexible and work-from-home setup may still be in place. 100% seating capacity is now allowed in all kinds of public transportation, while acrylic and plastic dividers are no longer required.
Ang number coding scheme po na kasalukuyang ini-implement po natin ay mananatili. Ito po ay Monday hanggang Friday, 5 to 8 p.m. Pero pinag-aaralan na po natin yung posibilidad na expand po yan sa 7 to 9 a.m.
However, proof of full vaccination will be required for individuals 18 years old and above before participating in mass gatherings and indoor activities. Children ages 17 and below will not be required to present a proof of vaccination status.
Kailangan po, meron din po tayong angking pagdedesisyon na pag nakita natin na maramihan ng tao, mga mass gatherings, tayo na po ang mag-self-regulate. Kung sa tingin natin, hindi natin mapapatupad ng gusto ang ating pag-mask o yung physical distance na kailangan, tayo po ay pumunta lang doon sa mga talagang kailangan natin puntahan.
Contact tracing efforts such as the health declaration forms and digital contact tracing apps like staysafe.ph are now only optional. Asymptomatic close contacts are required to isolate immediately and will only be tested once symptoms show up. RT-PCR testing will be prioritized for healthcare workers, senior citizens, and persons with comorbidities. Establishments are also no longer required to have isolation facilities. Authorities say the government can tighten restriction if and when a new variant that possesses serious danger comes or when hospitals get filled up quickly.
Hindi pa ho tapos ang pandemya. Hindi pa rin po tayo dumarating dun sa sinasabi nating endemic state na andito po ngayon tayo sa level ng ating sitwasyon kung saan we are transitioning dito po sa gusto nating marating na new normal.
Makikita po natin dun sa guidelines na yan na ang number one rule po ay hindi dapat tanggalin ang mask. No? Constant po yan. Make sure na lagi tayong nakamask.
Malacanang says the current de-escalation of alert level in several areas is poised to drum up 9.4 billion pesos worth in economic activity per week and will lead to 170,000 jobs in the next 3 months. Trisha Terada, CNN Philippines.
In global headlines, a Ukrainian delegation agreeing to peace talks with Russia after days of fighting between their troops. Ukraine demands a, quote, immediate ceasefire and withdrawal of Russian troops during the meeting at the border with Belarus. It says Russian forces have slowed their offensive but are still pushing forward. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered his country's nuclear deterrence forces on high alert. Philippine authorities also keeping the guard up as they facilitate the repatriation of Filipinos in Ukraine. Tristan Odalo has that report.
Efforts to evacuate Filipinos wanting to leave Ukraine continue amid the Russian invasion. Over the weekend, 13 Filipinos from the Eastern European country managed to cross the Poland border via a 5-hour trip. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin Jr. personally welcomed them upon their arrival at the border. Locsin adds that the said embassies are working double time to bring Filipinos to safety.
It was also very emotional kasi alam po nyo yung pagbabagtasin mo talaga yung border, 20 kilometers po yung pila ng mga sasakyan. Yan pong pinapakita nyo, ano na yun, nakakross na po talaga sila.
The 13 Filipinos in Poland need to undergo their RT-PCR test before flying back to Manila. They were also given $200 cash assistance plus psychosocial assistance for possible war shock effect. The DFA adds some Filipinos still prefer not to go home.
Ayaw nila magpa-repatriate. They just want to wait it out and wait and see. So what we're trying to do is to be in constant contact with the Filipinos who choose to stay and at least know where they are, and also at the same time give them assistance or care packages.
Ukrainian ambassador to the Philippines and Malaysia, Alexander Nechitailo, says the situation in Ukraine is fluid.
The dynamics on the field is changing. The morale of our troops is very high. The Russian troops been demoralized. There is a major diplomatic effort on the way now. Yesterday, our President Zelensky spoke to President Lukashenko from Belarus, and we expect the negotiation to take place between Ukraine and Russia on the border between Ukraine and Belarus in the coming hours this morning. So we believe these few hours will be decisive in which direction the events will develop further.
The Ukrainian ambassador urges Filipinos to join the call to make Russia accountable for the crisis.
What is happening now in Ukraine is not about Ukraine or Russia anymore. Nobody can stay indifferent. Nobody can say, it's far, it's in Europe, we don't care about that. Everybody have to care because this is the cause for the world peace. And I believe Filipinos and all other free-loving nations have to speak up.
Ukraine has filed a complaint against Russia at The Hague over its actions and following the orders of leader Vladimir Putin to place Russia's nuclear deterrent forces on high alert. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
It was the vice presidential candidates who first stood on the CNN Philippines debate stage. How can they fight corruption? Amor Santos tells us what some of their plans are.
The report. Senator Kiko Pangilinan vows he will ensure justice is served in the Pharmaly controversy if he's elected vice president. He says he will not interfere with the judiciary and will push for reforms and additional funding for the courts.
Yan ang hirap sa ating sistema ng katarungan, mabagal, kaya dapat din mamodernisa.
ang ating justice system.
According to the partial report of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, the panel recommends charges against President Rodrigo Duterte over the allegedly anomalous supply deals with Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation. After the debate, Senate President Tito Soto tells CNN Philippines he has so far not seen any evidence pinning down the chief executive.
Duque and the rest, definitely. The President, I have not read it. In the hearings, it did not come out.
For pro-life advocate Rizalito David, only the renewal of faith and morals can end corruption.
Dahil nagkukulang tayo sa pag-ibig, ibalik natin ang gobyerno kay Kristo.
Economist Manny Lopez calls for a new system.
We have this e-governance system that could address specific loopholes in the public financial system.
On the issue of political dynasties, former Akbayan party list representative Walden Bello appealed to the public not to vote candidates from ruling families. Presidential bet Bongbong Marcos and his running mate Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte.
The South and the North raw will get together to eat up the Philippines. The task is up to our voters. Do not elect these dynastic cliques.
For Dr. Willie Ong, if the country can't ban political dynasties, then draw a line at least.
Baka pwede may gap muna, may isang term para at least hindi gamitin yung resources nung nahalal, tsaka may limit lang yung dami ng kamag-anak na po pwede. Siguro 2 o 3.
Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
While 9 presidential bets were facing off inside the University of Santo Tomas during the CNN Philippines debate, there was another battle among their supporters outside. Paige Javier gives us a look.
Cheers, jeers, and loud music filled the Pitan Street in Manila on Sunday afternoon. It felt like there was a basketball game or boxing match. But there was no sporting event, only people watching the CNN Philippines presidential debate. In particular, supporters of Manny Pacquiao, Leni Robredo, and Isko Moreno watched on an LED screen along the Pitan Street set up by a pro-Pacquiao group. Every time their candidate answered, the crowd went wild. But things took a turn when the feed stopped twice while Robredo was answering. Pacquiao supporters could not explain what happened, while some claim it was a technical glitch. But instead of demanding answers, Robredo's kakampinks opted to move away from the pack.
Actually, nakakagulat nga na nangyari yon. Especially, hindi lang naman kami nakikinig, may iba't ibang supporters, di ba? Wala silang sinabi naman, so we really don't know if it's intentional. Gusto lang din namin na mag-keep space para hindi na rin mag-cause ng any further commotion.
Earlier, supporters gathered in the Pitan to cheer for their bets. Police were quick to respond since they already expected the crowds.
Musunod naman sila at kahit na sila ay magkakatabi-tabi at may iba't ibang presidential bets na sinusuportahan sila naman na hindi nag-aaway.
At the end of the day, it's all about being a good sport for most supporters.
Sa akin pong piniling kandidato at mga supporters, naniniwala po ako na hindi po yan magkakaroon ng gulo, magkakaroon po ng patas, na pagpapaliwanag.
Oriented naman po kami, hindi po kami nagkukos ng anumang gulo, no? At kami po ay nandito para suportahan ang aming mahal na senador, Manny Pacquiao.
Mas magandang walang away. Kasi tayo naman bilang supporter, ang amin lang gumawa ng tama at mabuti. Pare-pares lang tayong mga tao.
And just like in sports, the cheers, the heckling, the noise, and the chants are all part of the spectacle. Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
Netizens had plenty to say about the candidates' platforms and views. As discussed in yesterday's CNN Philippines presidential debate, a number of netizens wondered about Manila Mayor Isko Moreno's stance on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, criticizing the candidate for choosing to be neutral in a time of moral crisis. Some presidential bets' views on certain issues received praises, with some applauding their support for same-sex civil unions. But several netizens also expressing that those running should go further and vow to legalize same-sex marriage. The absence of one candidate became the talk of netizens, with this individual emphasizing admiration for Faisal Mangundato for having the courage to show up. 9 of the 10 presidential hopefuls were present at the debate. Former Senator Bongbong Marcos was not able to attend as he chose to campaign in Pangasinan. Did you miss the CNN Philippines presidential and vice presidential debates? Catch the replays of the presidential debate tonight at 10 o'clock, Saturday at 10 a.m., and Sunday at 7 p.m. The replay of the vice presidential debate will be on Saturday, 7 p.m. Still on Newsnight, find out the winners of this year's Screen Actors Guild Awards, and the top 50 list for the Miss Universe Philippines is out. Some veteran beauty queens are in the running. Find out who they are after this break. Welcome back to CNN Philippines. A bitter end to the first assignment of Gilas for the year. The national men's basketball team closed out this month's window of the FIBA World Cup qualifiers last night with a loss to New Zealand, 88-63. The disappointing home court defeat led some fans at the Araneta Coliseum to chant, "We want Baldwin," referring to former head coach Tab Baldwin, who left the team last month. Current coach Chot Reyes tells CNN Philippines Sports Desk he is not paying mind to the criticism.
Did not hear it last night, to be very honest.
Okay.
But my family, people already told me about it, and just very honest, I expected it. I came into this job. I accepted this job with my eyes wide open. I knew I was going to get widely bashed and criticized and hated upon, and I still took it nonetheless, because that's never going to get in the way of my service to my country.
Gilas is already through to the 2023 World Cup regardless of the results, since the Philippines is one of the host countries. Now, from the hard court to the pageant stage, the top 50 list for Miss Universe Philippines is out. Among the candidates are experienced beauty queens with the likes of Miss World 2019 top 12 finalist Michelle D, Miss Earth 2018 finalist Celeste Cortez, third runner-up of Miss Universe Philippines 2020, Pauline Amelinx, and fifth runner-up of the 2019 Reina Hispano-Americana, Maria Catrina Legado. You can view the full list of candidates on cnnphilippines.com. Last year, only the top 30 delegates competed on finals night. The 2022 Miss Universe Philippines coronation is set for April 20. Now let's take a look at some of the big winners at this year's Screen Actors Guild Awards. Record-breaking Netflix hit Squid Game bagged major trophies. Jung Ho-yeon, who made her acting debut on the show, took outstanding performance by a female actor in a drama series. The K-drama also won 3 of its 4 nominations and is the first non-English series to ever be nominated for a SAG award. As for movies, Coda also made breakthrough wins, nabbing both categories it was nominated for. It is the only SAG Award film ensemble winner with several deaf characters actually portrayed by deaf actors. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Mas pinalawak, mas pinalakas. RPN sa iba't ibang mga lalawigan. DZRL Bataan, DZBS Baguio, DZKI Iriga, DYKB Bacolod, DYKC Cebu, DXKS Surigao, DXKD Dipolo, DXKO Cagayan de Oro, DXKT Davao, DXKP Pagadian, DXXX Zamboanga, DXDX General Santos.
RPN Radio Philippines Network, DXKD Dipolo Radio Ronda, member kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Another COVID-19 variant named Omicron is said to be the cause for the surge in cases in the Philippines and globally. There's been a lot of discussion about this new variant, and from what we know so far, it's highly transmissible, meaning each person infected is infecting more than one person faster, resulting in an explosion of cases. But the good news is early studies show that Omicron is causing milder symptoms than previous variants. We also now have more tools at our disposal to deal with this variant than we did with past variants in 2020. Today, we'll talk to experts who will give us a guide to this new variant and what we can do to protect ourselves as well as others. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Our goal here on the program is to help you better understand the care you need and deserve. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. COVID-19 infections in the country have risen at an unprecedented rate with a very high positivity, way above the World Health Organization's 5% benchmark. Our guests today will tell us everything they know about this new variant. So let's welcome our guest for today. With us is Dr. Alex Huson, who is an infectious disease specialist from the Philippine Society for Microbiology and Infectious Diseases, as well as the Binyan Doctors Hospital. Also joining us is Dr. Ana Gia Limpoco, who is a family medicine specialist at Manila Doctors Hospital and the Philippine General Hospital. First identified in South Africa in November, the Omicron variant has surged around the world faster than any previous known variant. Now, Omicron spreads more easily than others, as studies show, but the current severity of illness and death associated with it is still, for the most part, unclear. Dr. Alex, I'll start with you. Why does Omicron spread faster than other variants like the Delta variant?
The Omicron variant has many mutations in the viral genetic makeup. So, marami siyang mga mutations that makes it more transmissible. So, it can infect more than the usual or the native COVID virus that we knew. And these mutations usually gives the property of the virus to escape the immune system, meaning hindi siya nadidetect agad ng immune system, therefore causing reinfection of those previously infected and those who already received COVID vaccinations.
What do we know so far about the severity of Omicron? Kapag ibig sabihin ba mas maraming mutations ang Omicron kumpara sa Delta, ay mas delikado ito. Kumaga, a lot of people are thinking, mas malaki ba ang pangil ng Omicron variant?
We already have some experiences from the South Africa and many European countries about Omicron variant. So, and almost the same experience that they have, we are also experiencing now. based on the latest statistics, yung mga cases ng Omicron, madami lang siya talaga kasi very transmissible compared from previous variants. Pero yung mga nakakaroon ng severe and critical disease ay much more less compared doon sa mga ibang variants that like Delta.
Now, a number of Omicron cases are obviously already present here in the country. Pero how is this driving the spike in infections, Dr. Alex?
It's very transmissible, way beyond the transmissibility property of the previous variant. So what the impact of this variant is that many people get sick. And since this is rather new, unlike for example, we have the flu in the past, COVID instill quarantine and isolation. It really affects the normal daily behavior like work. And also, if we have a lot of cases, even though it's mild, they all go to the hospital and they try to consult because they need consultation. So, kung sobrang dami, kahit di naman siya talagang mild, it can still affect the daily hospital operations.
Since the beginning of 2022, cases of COVID-19 have risen sharply. Dr. Ana, how worried should we be about the rise of COVID-19 cases?
Based on previous experiences, there are probably reports na in 2 to 3 months talaga makikita natin yung peak nito. So if we started like January, siguro we can still see a peak until March, no? So based on the previous experiences.
Meron bang mga simptomas na kakaiba na nakita lang natin dito sa Omicron?
In terms of the symptoms, it still refers to the upper respiratory tract symptoms, no? So by experience, what we commonly see right now for patients, mas marami ang nagpipresent with sore throat, cough and colds pa rin. Some may or may not have fever, but yun yung mga symptoms pertaining to the upper respiratory tract. So, parang yun yung nakikita namin ngayon in clinics na common sa mga nagpapa-check up. Compared to the previous ones na may cough and cold pa rin, may sneezing, etc., not so common on the sore throat. But still, meron pa rin kaming questions about may anosmia ba, ibig sabihin may pang-amoy ba or may panglasa ba yung pasyente. So, these are the things that we must check and also advise our patients to monitor or to look into, lalo na when they start to have these symptoms.
This new variant seems to have a shorter incubation period. This means that after a person is exposed, it takes as few as 2 or even 3 days for them to develop symptoms, becoming contagious, and they will test positive as compared to 4 to even 6 days sometimes with the Delta variant. Some studies point out that a person is infectious even before they develop symptoms. Now, for most people, Omicron appears to result in mostly mild to moderate illness that can resemble the common cold or the flu. Dr. Ana, pag ito yung mga simptomas sa pangkaraniwan, does this mean na hindi aabot sa severe illness ang merong Omicron?
When we say, pag meron na tayong cough and cold or all these symptoms, I would agree na kailangan mag-quarantine ka na and then have yourself checked by the doctor. Magpa-test kung kailangan. Now, there's a caveat for here. Kailangan yung mga may comorbids, sila sana yung mga ma-prioritize na mapatest natin. Why? Because these are the vulnerable ones na pwedeng magkaroon or mag-progress into a moderate to severe COVID regardless of the variant. So meaning ito yung mga elderly, may hypertension, may diabetes, or may other conditions that may potentially be affected at pwedeng mag-progress into moderate severe COVID. So kahit Delta man yan or Omicron variant pa yan.
When we return, we'll talk about how effective the current vaccines are against Omicron. We're your connection to healthcare. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk. With a sharp rise in cases, one of the most important questions today is, do the current vaccines work against the Omicron variant? I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk. We're together in health. Dr. Alex, why do vaccinated people still get infected if they are already vaccinated, sometimes even boosted? Nagkakasakit pa rin.
Isang sinasabi na possible reason is that the idea of immune escape, meaning this Omicron variant na nagkatago sila doon sa immune system. Meaning, kahit na nabakunahan na, meron pa rin chances na yung mga antibodies na na-produce ay hindi ma-detect agad yung Omicron variant. So, yun yung nagiging dahilan why those people na fully vaccinated, others are even already boosted, no? Magkakaroon pa rin sila ng Omicron variant. Pero, still, if you are fully vaccinated, receive booster doses, definitely the chances of getting severe illness is mababa talaga.
Dr. Ana, alam na ba natin for sure how does Omicron affect naman yung mga unvaccinated people?
Well, it's the same thing with all the other variants for COVID-19. So, whether or not yung mga variants natin out there for COVID-19 sa mga taong hindi vaccinated, there's really a potential that the disease may progress into something moderate or severe. The thing is, when we do the RT-PCR testing, hindi naman yan na-identify right there and then if this is Omicron or not until we do genome sequencing.
One of the most common vaccines used in the country is Sinovac. Dr. Alex, is it effective ang Sinovac against Omicron?
Yung mga nabigyan ng Sinovac, effective pa din siya against Omicron. Especially kung pag-iusapan natin is yung pag-decrease or pagbaba ng chances of getting severe and critical COVID.
When it comes to boosters, is it okay na parehong brand? Kung Sinovac ang primary series ko, booster ko Sinovac, or should I look for another type of booster?
There are evidence na after some time, yung mga antibodies nag-decrease. So, for example, if you get Sinovac for your primary dose, may study po nagsasabi na better po ang magiging effect pagdami ng antibodies if you receive another type of vaccine or what we call as the heterologous vaccination. So, for example, yung una mo, Sinovac, then for your booster dose, you will be receiving other brands, Pfizer or Moderna. Mas maganda po yung boosting.
What can you say about those who are, hindi natin maiwasan yun, medyo takot because they received a certain brand of vaccines and they're really out there to probably get another series of 2 doses. What can you suggest with this?
That will be a case-to-case basis then. We have to check prior to vaccination kung ano ba yung naging reaction. Probably the person had a severe adverse reaction with the previous vaccine, kaya ganun yung kanyang experience and doesn't want to have the same similar reaction as well. That's why pwedeng another set of vaccines yung mabigay sa kanya.
Dr. Ana, can at-home test kits be used to detect infection? And syempre, marami nagtatanong yung accuracy ng mga test kits na available sa market ngayon.
As we speak siguro, no, may listing naman ng FDA kung ano yung mga approved talaga. But I have to remind the people that when we do the home test kit, dapat trained yung gagawa niyan. Hindi pwedeng basta lang you do parang the usual test lang. Healthcare provider ang gagawa ng test sa inyo. That's one. Number 2 is, kailangan alam kailan ba gagawin ang test na ito kasi may timing din yan. And then number 3, we have to also think of how to properly dispose it. So if you are not sure of those things, better to ask your doctor or any healthcare provider before doing that home test kits yourselves.
Kapag nag-positive sa any of these tests, RT-PCR or home antigen tests, anong dapat gawin ng ating mga viewers?
First step ay mag-isolate na agad. Then, syempre, mag-consult po sa doctor para malaman po yung mga tamang medications that you will be taking in. Huwag po tayo basta mag-iinom ng mga medications na walang payo ng doktor. Kasi, for example, hindi naman po lahat ay perfectly well. Marami po sa mga patients ay mayroong mga iba't ibang mga health issues. May hypertension or diabetes. So, there will be some peculiarities in managing this patient. So, the best is to still consult your doctor.
You know, these home test kits are, in one end, very convenient for them. It gives them some information. But what can you say about how they should treat that information? Because I'm sure, konting sore throat lang, konting ubo lang, gusto nilang magpa-test kagad.
The most accurate pa rin is doing the RT-PCR. So when you do your home test kit at home, no, at let's say marunong naman talaga kayo, and it turns out to be positive, most likely when you do the RT-PCR, positive rin yan. But then again, no, I have to warn everybody na kailangan trained yung gagawa niyan. The second point that I want to emphasize is that if you are symptomatic and if you have comorbidities, magpa-RT-PCR na kayo. Huwag na mag-home test kit.
Despite new variants, the spread of COVID-19 can be prevented by following safety protocols and adopting a healthy lifestyle. We'll talk about this and more when we return. Your health is our mission. This is Med Talk Health Talk. We'll be right back. COVID-19 is still here, which is why knowing and following safety protocols is still a must. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and you're watching Med Talk Health Talk, where your care always comes first. Even if Omicron causes less severe disease, according to studies, it shouldn't be dismissed as mild. The number of cases can overwhelm the healthcare system and cause many problems. We must continue to protect ourselves and protect each other. Dr. Ana, please walk us through the tips on how to keep ourselves COVID-free.
I have to emphasize yung safety precautions natin, hand washing, physical distancing, social distancing. Following the protocols, if you're symptomatic, mag-quarantine ka na kaagad and then have yourself checked as well. And then also yung properly wearing of masks. Yan, importante.
Dr. Alex, when it comes to masks, ano yung most effective mask? Dati, nung Delta, okay na yung cloth mask was deemed okay because of the shortages of masks. But when it comes to Omicron, ano yung pinaka-effective na mask na dapat meron tayo?
About masking, ang pinaka-okay for the general public pa din is the surgical mask that yung merong blue sa labas, white sa loob. So, ang transmission naman is still droplet. So, ang talagang best pa din para sa general public ay yung blue mask.
Dr. Alex, yung pagdo-double mask, is this now the norm? Is this still recommended?
No, hindi naman kailangan na double masking, no? Hindi pa yan talaga ina-advocate sa ngayon kasi nga droplet ang transmission ng COVID. So, single mask, properly worn correctly, and disposed properly will really be enough for protecting us against COVID.
Aside from following safety protocols, keeping your immune system strong is one of the ways we can protect ourselves from COVID-19. Dr. Ana, what are some of the things that we should do daily in order to keep ourselves healthy?
Eat well, sleep well, hand washing, take your vitamins, take medications if you have maintenance medications, and then always protect yourself, keep yourself protected by wearing the mask properly, hand washing, physical social distancing then. So I think those are the things na kailangan. It's part of our day-to-day living already.
Many people feel that since mostly mild ang cases ng Omicron, people should just get infected naturally and get it over with, kung tawagin. Dr. Alex, what is the danger in this form of thinking?
Very dangerous yung gagawin mo kung naisip mo na magpahawa ka na lang para tapos na, no? Number one, if we do this, especially among the unvaccinated, yung new variant pwede pa rin mag-develop. Pwede ikaw yung maging next na incubation person kung saan pwede magkaroon ng bagong variant ng COVID, no? So, another one is that still Delta variant is still here. So, one cannot choose which variant they can get infected with. So, kung Omicron tapos mild, okay, better, thanks God. Pero kung Delta, matsyempuhan ka, and then mag-develop ka ng severe disease, then yun, pwede mo ikamatay talaga.
Now, Dr. Ana, here's a question that I'm sure a lot may be experiencing now, and it has something to do with children being infected with COVID-19. So, what are some advice that you can give for those parents who are negative pero yung anak nila positive?
If there's a family member who has positive COVID, kailangan naka-isolate siya, but if you are living in the same household, lahat kayo, lalo na yung parents taking care of the children, pwedeng naka-mask naman yan. And then just observe proper hand washing, no? Social distancing, pwede namang pag pinifeed yung bata, kung kaya naman niyang kumain, basta nakabantay ka lang sa kanya. And then, continue yung vitamin supportive treatment, hydrate the child, kasi kailangan well-hydrated pa rin siya. And give medications as prescribed by the doctor. Of course, constant monitoring or coordination with your medical provider or your pediatrician or family physician is needed para mag-guide yung parents in taking care of their child na may COVID.
Dr. Alex, when it comes to boosters, balik tayo sa mga boosters sandali, ano? A lot of people may be in isolation or quarantine because of being infected with COVID and they are probably due for their booster shots. Anong advice mo sa timing? Kailan ba sila dapat magka-booster shot? Pwede bang right after isolation or should there be a gap?
The best is to prepare your body. So, physically, kailangan makarecover ka muna from the COVID infection, even if it's mild. So, after siguro 1 to 2 weeks that you're okay, then you're due for booster doses, then pwede na.
Pero pag Doc Alex, pag asymptomatic naman yung positive siya, asymptomatic, natapos na yung isolation, pwede na ba siya magpa-booster dose right away after isolation?
Kung asymptomatic naman at okay naman siya, pwede na po. Once okay na ang isolation.
So this discussion was very helpful. Thank you, infectious disease specialist Dr. Alex Huson and family medicine specialist Dr. Ana Gia Limpoco. We continue to live in the age of COVID-19 and we may not totally eradicate it, but experts say that we'll see it move out of the pandemic phase into the endemic phase at some point, where its impact will come down to more manageable levels. But until this happens, let's keep doing our part in limiting the damage of this latest surge and protect ourselves and those around us. Stay safe, everyone. We want to be your partner for a lifetime of good health. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.